Told you we'd be back. All right.
It was like 2 seconds.
Uh-huh.
Oh, this is awesome.
Oh, speaking of shit.
Oh. None.
I skipped forward the Max Dinley last spot, but it's whatever.
Oh, yeah, you can skip forward till you get to the right place.
No, not that.
Oh.
Let's see. This one. I need to do these alarms.
Right.
And it's been a whole nother hour at this Walmart, by the way. So we've been at this Walmart for 2 hours now.
Heard it.
Are we leaving?
Are you finished with your beer yet?
We don't have to leave. But you don't have to wait for that.
I do when you don't have a container to conceal it in.
Then you should go to the closest gas station.
We're at Walmart right now.
So what? There's no fountain drink cups in there unless you want to go find one. shit for me?
Yeah. Do you have the text alerts set up?
No. Should be out by the time we get there. I don't think there's a coffee for you. They should just set up a cup.
Yeah, it still takes 30 minutes.
Oh, if it does, you just walk in and ask for your cup, one cup.
Thirty frames still.
Is off Italian, and then it starts what you need to know if they're thinking about it.
Life, you're going to have to go to a re-education camp. You're going to have to give up your language a little bit. If you think that's the stakes in the Ukraine, the United States is willing to just give you guns to fight it out, right? So the question is, for me, is that much different than this guy Gendron, what he feels like is going to happen in the United States, right? So what happens when the white Christian nation falls, right? So let's say black people get reparations. There's this idea that black people can get reparations.
The
White people
white
aren't going to have to
Christian
give up
nation.
anything. It'll be fine. Except black people will have like commercial land.
I guess this is the only white Christian nation.
He means the version of America that is a white Christian nation.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just for me to say the white Christian nation as if there's only one.
Oh, I don't hear him implying that there's only one. I'm sure he would agree that there's more than one white Christian nation in the world.
And money and assets and all this stuff that we don't have right now. I actually think that's a naive understanding of how reparations is going to work. I think if black people are going to be made whole, like it's going to take a little bit of redistribution. Some people are going to take haircuts. They're going to have to distribute assets, family contracts that have been in the family since the clan daddy won them are going to have to like now get broken up and redistributed in ways that are going to make people uncomfortable, right? So I actually think there's going to be a change in some ways of life. If your way of life has given you a quality of entitlement that is either promotes or is consistent with black degradation. Because once black degradation goes away, that means that the inequality of life that was tied to black degradation is going to have to go away. And that's a lot of quality of life.
So I hear you, and I'm willing to entertain that, but I don't want to get too sidetracked on a hypothetical reparations arrangement when there are many different kinds of arrangements that people could imagine, and some of which would be more or less kind of it was more or less implicated by design, would more or less implicate kind of white wealth. And in this instance, obviously the shooter wasn't motivated by reparations. And much to my chagrin, reparations are nowhere on the table. Now, he did write, here's the reparations on his gun. I'm not saying that he wasn't like thinking about reparations, but it's not as though it was a response to reparations or any real political movement and a meaningful political movement for reparations.
So
what is the threat? You know, I want to talk about in the context of the threat that's currently.
2 generations, everyone will be like, light brown, and because of all the intermarriage and the racism will go away. And like, I thought that was kind of nonsense at the time. But if you don't want that, that would actually be threatening to your vision of America. Like, so
Joe
But I thought
Biden
that was
talking
nonsense
about
because I don't
interracial
think.
couples is the threat.
What's up?
Joe Biden talking about interracial commercials on TV is the perceived threat.
Is the perceived threat? It's the perceived. Yeah, like there's this idea that the hierarchy is benign, or it like can go away, but people's quality of life and way of life stays the same. I'm not sure that's the case. But what's actually bad science about this is that it's institutionally false. You don't need a majority to rule things. If you have antecedent property rights and full cultural command, like hegemony over like the institutions of culture, you only
Wait,
need like 25-30% to keep control. I think in South Africa you don't even need that much, right? So full cultural command. That science about this is that it's institutionally false. You don't need a majority to rule things. If you have antecedent property rights,
anteceding property rights?
Antecedent property rights. It means if your ancestors, if your direct ancestors.
Political strategy, so it's like an artificial panic in multiple ways. One, because you shouldn't be panicked about justice. Two, even if you are worried about your kind of grift of injustice, a little bit like being a minority, if you have antecedent property rights and like control over cultural apparatus, you still get to run things. There are many black places in the South that are run by white people who don't even live there because they still own like the land.
Moreover,
Right,
America
so-
is still 70% white. I mean, what always bugged me out. So I'm coming to this from a unique angle because I have been arguing for years. I just pulled up an article that I wrote in 2018 that really pushed back against folks like Stephen Phillips, who's an advisor at CAP and who wrote The Browning of America, and really.
Yes, racism exists. Yes, it will make anyone's life harder doing anything. No, should you let that ever stop you from doing anything. Never should you let that stop you from doing anything. Ever. I don't care how racist of a society you live in, but especially not in America.
Land of the free.
Home of the fucking brave. Holy shit.
How about being brave? How about earning the legacy?
Earning your citizenship. Just try being brave. That's all.
That's all you have to do to be brave is try.
Don't think that your citizenship to America is just like some God-given right. You're lucky to be here.
Bravery is just when you're afraid and you still try anyway.
Everyone in America is lucky to be in America and not in Afghanistan.
Or literally any other country in the fucking planet. Even America doesn't have enough freedom of speech, but we have more than anyone else does.
Yeah. Can't stand people who hate this place. It doesn't have problems? Yeah.
No shit.
No fucking shit.
Who doesn't? Like, I don't want to fix America's problems.
Right.
Like, I don't want us to be our best self.
But first, recognize that we are the best.
There, that's the starting point. That makes you that's not even, see, that's why we call people rhinos, Deidre, because they like Republicans, okay, they vote for Republicans a lot of the time, but they don't necessarily agree that that's the starting point. Yes, America is the best.
See, the reason why I don't agree with you calling Van Jones a rhino is because I do think he thinks America is the
Van
best.
Jones, what? I never called Van Jones a rhino. He's a Democrat.
He's not a Democrat.
What are you talking about?
Who's that one guy? Van Jones was not. He was the former RNC.
You're talking about Michael Steele.
Oh. Okay, yeah, Michael Steele. The one who was talking to those one guys who were like, Ultra Mega, yeah, such a great bird. That guy.
Yeah.
Is that Michael Steele?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't necessarily agree with calling Michael Steele a rhino because I do think he...
That's very rhino-ish, sussy behavior there.
There are legitimate arguments. Ish. Not many. But from the black perspective, there are legitimate arguments for that, for not feeling the whole Make America Great Again. Because even though the 50s and the 50s to 60s, even some of the 40s was some of the best times for black people, was still some of the worst times for black people too.
Yeah, well, just because I consider him a rhino doesn't mean I think he's an unpersuadable rhino. I think he's a dark red rhino.
I don't think that the line you just drew for calling him a rhino is necessarily a legitimate line.
Well, what line was that?
Him not necessarily believing in MAGA.
Yeah. It's not a foolproof. It's not foolproof, but I wonder what all his political beliefs actually are. I mean, he said some of them in the interview.
A lot of them. He ragged on Democrats just as much as he ragged on Republicans. He said, I'm not going to go from stupid to crazy.
What do you mean just as much? He was definitely harsher on the Democrats.
Okay. So, yeah, he didn't even contemplate. He wouldn't even give it the thought of becoming a Democrat. They kept asking him and he was like, you're crazy.
Yeah, but he did threaten to renounce his membership in the Republican Party nonetheless.
Yeah, well, he might become independent or something.
Yeah, well, that independent is already the majority voting bloc.
I don't hate anyone who would rather become independent than a Republican. Republicans suck too in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, they're way too big government right now. And overspending. All in the country's pockets. Should be at 10%, less than 10%, and they're over 30, or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
And they're just going along with it, and they're supposed to be the ones fighting against it.
We really shouldn't need taxes at all in this country.
That was the goal. The goal was to make taxes as little as possible.
Zero is the goal.
Zero is the goal.
If you can fund the government charitably, then you can achieve 0.00 national tax.
Yes. And I guarantee you the founding fathers would have loved it for it to be that way.
Every conservative and their mama would love for it to be that way.
Yes. So that's why every Republican is justified in not being happy with the Republicans right now.
And all people would reap the benefits of that kind of a society.
Yeah. So what the hell are the ones in charge doing? Fighting with the Democrats?
Stealing all the tax dollars.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
So fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. And their communist bullshit.
On both sides.
On both sides.
Yes.
Their communist bullshit on both sides.
Yep.
So I don't think there's much wrong with Michael Steele.
He's yeah, he's a reasonable person. He still gives me rhino vibes, but he's someone that I would be comfortable in a room with, being friends with, being allies with, talking to, debating with.
Yeah. He seems like a very reasonable person to me. Easily convincible if you give him good arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I have plenty of. So I don't worry. I never worry that I can't give people good arguments. I've like stopped even worrying that I can't give good arguments on like shit I don't even know shit about.
Yeah, me too. Because apparently everyone just goes around giving shitty arguments with shit they don't know about.
Even
professionals.
and even things they do know about. They still give terrible arguments.
Yes.
So, you know.
So fuck that. Like, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah. All I have to do is ask them questions about it, and I'll be able to catch them quite quickly in some sort of bullshit contradiction that they're making.
If it sounds like, I've come to realize, if it sounds like bullshit, Deidre, it probably is.
Ask questions till you see exactly where the bullshit is.
I gotta go use the restroom before we go.
Okay. Hold on, should we throw that away on the way in? Shiatsu. Ay, ay, ay. Mamma mia.
Quality of life and way of life stays the same. I'm not sure that's the case. But what's actually bad science about this is that it's institutionally false. You don't need a majority to rule things. If you have antecedent property rights and full cultural command, like hegemony over like the institutions of culture, you only need 25-30% to keep control. I think in South Africa you don't even need that much, right? So it's just bad political strategy. So it's like an artificial panic in multiple ways. One, because you shouldn't be panicked about justice. Two, even if you are worried about your kind of grift of injustice, a little bit like being a minority, if you have antecedent property rights and control over cultural apparatus, you still get to run things. There are many black places in the South that are run by white people who don't even live there because they still own the land.
Moreover, right? America is still 70% white. I mean, what always bugged me out. So I'm coming to this from a unique angle because I have been arguing for years. I just pulled up an article that I wrote in 2018 that really pushed back against folks like Stephen Phillips, who's an advisor at CAP and who wrote The Browning of America, and really pressed this narrative the Democratic Party basically doesn't have to do anything but sit back and wait, and demographics are going to help them out. I push back against that, not because like Tucker Carlson or, if you don't want to attribute these views to Tucker Carlson and a number of other people, the shooter, not because I think that the Browning of America is a problem, because I believe in, white racial hierarchies, but because to me, it was an argument against actually doing things in service of constituents, advancing the kinds of policies that people actually want politicians to advance, and instead sitting back and saying, that he's persisting in
about your kind of grift of injustice. A little bit like being a minority, if you have antecedent property rights and control over cultural apparatus, you still get to run things. There are many black places in the South that are run by white people who don't even live there because they still own the land.
Moreover, right? America is still 70% white. I mean, what always bugged me out. So I'm coming to this from a unique angle because I have been arguing.
Can you switch me out of charge pack? I thought that whining was coming from the car, and then I realized, LOL, no, it's just not coming from the car.
Absolutely not. Nope. I mean, unless you mean attached to the car.
No, I mean from the engine of the car. LOL, no.
No, that would be the engine of our thingy.
Dude, that shit works so much better than just plugging it into the thingy.
Mm-hmm.
So much faster.
Duh.
I love it. This shit. What are we gonna do about this shit? This thing barely ever needs to charge. I just have to remember to charge it.
Yeah. Wasn't it dead when we plugged it in?
Yeah, almost dead.
Oh well, now it's on 75% or 50%.
Yeah, it charges pretty fast.
No, not that. Shouldn't have cords going across all of this.
I agree. Okay.
Right.
Double recording. And counting, Deidre. Can't wait to see how many ways we record at the same time in the future.
For years. I just pulled up an article that I wrote in 2018 that really pushed back against folks like Stephen Phillips, who's an advisor at CAP and who wrote The Browning of America, and really pressed this narrative. The Democratic Party basically doesn't have to do anything but sit back and wait, and demographics are going to help them out. You know, I push back against that, not because, like Tucker Carlson, or, you know, if you don't want to attribute these views to Tucker Carlson and a number of other people, the shooter, not because I think that the Browning of America is a problem, because I believe in, you know, white racial hierarchies, but because, to me,
Brianna is bad at articulating her views too.
She is, yes. But
Her
she's
compound sentences are a mess.
Yep. That is an education bias problem that happens with all college degree holders, as far as I can tell, or 95% of them.
You can't speak the way you write.
Yeah.
Because I can't see it constantly. I can't go back to the beginning of the sentence to go. I can't. When you put a parentheses in the middle of your sentence,
or 5,
or fucking 5, I can't go back and look at each part in between, surrounding the parentheses. One idea at a time.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Conversations aren't essays. Conversations are tweet threads. And they're not even tweet threads.
No! Any writing form is not a good... Like...
Conversations are like Snapchats, okay? Yeah, they only last so long. So you gotta make it count. You only get so much time to fucking communicate to someone.
A person's attention span is very short, so you can't make your sentence that long.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They don't even know what the fuck each other is saying half the time because they all have that problem.
Yes, all they remember is the last 10% of what the person said.
Or like, even if you focus on trying to remember only the most important 10% of what they said, it's still like
missing 90%.
Right.
it was an argument against actually doing things in service of constituents, advancing the kinds of policies that people actually want politicians to advance. And
they're not actually having a conversation. That's the problem. They're both performing for the camera.
That's a problem with many, many people these days. And it has been for a long time.
You can't call this a conversation. This isn't how two people speak.
It's a mockery.
This is not how two people speak when they sit at a dinner table.
It's a mockery of a conversation. They should be airing the conversation they have off air.
Yes.
But they're literally having that conversation on air and fucking it up.
Instead, sitting back and saying, well, they're never going to vote for all these Republicans because the Republicans are too racist. So the Democratic Party just has to be the lesser of two evils.
It's like, okay, so now it's your turn to rant and then ask a question. Now it's my turn to rant and then ask a question.
Yeah, it's lame. You know. But to Brianna's credit, she does actually make serious efforts consistently on her show.
Yeah, I know. The one
to actually push the boundaries of her intellectual curiosity. So,
well, this is not one of those times at all.
I don't know. We haven't listened to the video yet.
I can't consider her to be pushing her intellectual boundaries if she's talking to someone who's a fucking extreme leftist. Maybe if she was talking to someone on the right, I would believe that she was trying to learn something.
I'm not saying she's doing it well enough.
I don't think she's trying to learn something at all. What does she think there is to learn from this guy?
She plays devil's advocate against herself and her own opinions way too much for her to not be trying to learn something at all in general.
I know she's trying to learn something in general. I'm just not sure that her goal is to learn something from this guy.
It isn't the case that she hasn't spoken to conservatives.
I know that. I'm not saying she doesn't do that. I'm just saying it doesn't look like this is one of those times where she's trying to learn something from the person she's talking to.
I think she's trying to teach something to the person she's talking to. That's my personal view.
She's not doing a very good job of that.
Obviously.
That's the fucking case.
Obviously, yes.
And yeah, no. She's just been doing a very fucking horrible job of that from the get-go.
Quite
if that's her fucking goal. Because that could only be the only goal here.
I think that's about 80% of what she's doing.
And obviously, like, the other 20% is just giving him a platform to speak his mind or whatever.
And genuine curiosity and open to the possibility that she might learn something from him.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
On the off chance.
It's not that she doesn't respect him or he wouldn't be there.
And that's how we get into a place where no one's actually offering positive policy prescriptions. So I am also mad at this thing, you know, but I find myself in this bizarro position, advancing the kinds of policies that people actually want politicians to act against that.
Do
not
we still
because
have 30 frames?
like
Cool. Just checking.
Tucker Carlson, or, you know, if you don't want to attribute these views to Tucker Carlson and a number of other people, the shooter, not because I think that the browning of America is a problem, because I believe in, you know, white racial hierarchies, but because to me, it was an argument against actually doing things in service of constituents, advancing the kinds of policies that people actually want politicians to advance, and instead sitting back and saying, well, they're never going to vote for all these Republicans because the Republicans are too racist, so the Democratic Party just has to be the lesser of two evils, and that's how we get into a place where no one's actually offering positive policy prescriptions. So I am also mad at this thing, you know, but I find myself in this bizarro position where I have to concede that Tucker Carlson is right in identifying that this really is the Democratic Party's plan.
Yeah.
But the Democratic Party is having trouble pushing back against him because, like, they've been saying it out loud for a long time.
I hate the demographics as destiny because it's not true. Not only is it lazy politics, it's not true because you don't understand how institutions work. Even if America, like, if there's a browning of America, doesn't mean they're all going to go Democrats.
Right.
Like institutions make Americans.
Yeah.
Right? Not biology. Institutions make Americans. So people are going to come, they're going to participate in American institutions, and if you don't have institutional control or institutional narratives, well, you don't worry about.
Right, because Democrats have no institutional control or institutional narratives.
Fucking hilarious.
Only Republicans have that. So obviously, it's not true that the bringing in the the immigrants is going to inherently make.
Jeez. A wrong premise leading to a wrong conclusion. Great.
No one said they all would. They're just more likely to vote blue because they come from bluer societies. Duh.
Uh-huh.
And they go to blue areas when they come. Like the big cities in Florida and California.
And it's the Democrats that smuggle them into the country.
Uh-huh.
And give them welfare.
And they certainly aren't going to get here and automatically think, oh, Democrats are the losing party. Especially not if they show up in a blue place.
Or like in a blue administration.
Yes.
Obviously, they're not the losing party if they won the last election.
Right.
The fuck?
No one's going to vote for a losing party. There's no winning party, really. Goes back and forth. It's been more conservative over the years. But that's the most you can say.
That's the most you can say, and it's not by a lot.
building institutions or swaying institutions, you'll just get darker colored Republicans.
Let's just say there's always been a lot of push for blue. A lot.
In the various faces that it's chosen to wear.
Yes. So, and the biggest factor in that is not only is there a very, very strong blue presence in this country, no matter what the picture this man wants to paint for you is, but they do come from very big government. Like South American countries are very much big government, not small government. You know,
other cultures. So when a culture has more emphasis on individualism and individuality and personal responsibility, that
you're talking like really quiet. I don't know why.
Wasn't doing it on purpose. You do that all the time.
Okay. What were you saying?
I'm trying to remember. Just tell me what we were talking about. I'll probably remember.
I don't remember. And they certainly aren't going to get here and automatically think, oh, Democrats are the losing party. Especially not if they show up in a blue place.
Well, like in a blue administration.
Yes.
Obviously, they're not the losing party if they won the last election.
Right. No one's going to vote for a losing party. There's no winning party, really. Goes back and forth. It's been more conservative over the years. But that's the most you can say.
That's the most you can say, and it's not by a lot.
Building institutions or swaying institutions, you'll just get darker colored Republicans.
Let's just say there's always been a lot of push for blue. A lot.
In the various faces that it's chosen to wear.
Yes. So, and the biggest factor in that is not only is there a very, very strong blue presence in this country, no matter what the picture this man wants to paint for you is, but they do come from very big government. Like South American countries.
So the less of an emphasis you have on individualism.
Speak up a little bit more, please.
Sure. The less of an emphasis a culture of a society places on individualism and personal responsibility.
The less of an emphasis they place on individualism. Okay.
Yeah, and personal responsibility as cultural values in their society.
Mm-hmm.
The more open, the more susceptible those people are
to being gotten by the Democrats.
Statistically speaking, to being infected by the mind virus of communism.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an evolutionary statistical fact, culturally speaking.
Well, yeah, I mean, communism is like an embodiment of like the ultimate no personal responsibility, no individualism.
Yep.
Although you can't completely get away from personal responsibility even in communism, so isn't that funny?
Well, because it's physically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, everything maximally makes no sense under communism.
I need to start watching myself very regularly on the camera because I am ugly when I yell.
Well, it's a good thing that we have the camera facing you now, huh?
Yeah, not always, but I really have to pay attention to my face when I raise my voice.
Yeah.
So
it makes a big difference how you do it. Yep.
Because I don't want to look like a bitch or anything.
Oh,
Although I am a bitch, I don't want to look like no one would like me.
Yeah, no, I
You know what I
understand.
mean?
I understand what you're saying, Deidre. It's just cool because you know, exposing yourself makes you, you know, makes you want to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah,
It
for sure.
has the same effect on me too.
Gotta hurry up and take my hair out so I can finally make it look somewhat decent. Cause it's like impossible right now, basically.
I know. You just have to not worry about it.
Yeah. Guess there are uglier people than me on the internet.
I promise.
Let's see.
Our audio is pretty good, actually, considering, like, we were on the highway and shit, and I was speaking quietly, but I could, like, you know, it was quiet in the playback, but I could hear me.
Yeah, and I even had to turn it down.
Yeah, I could
Because the
tell.
playback was too loud.
Yeah, I could tell what I was saying.
Right.
And audio quality wasn't great, but I could tell what I was saying. So I was pretty satisfied.
Oh, I agree. The video quality is good too.
I love our setup more and more by the minute. I love our setup more and more by the minute.
My phone is flipped, but it's like it's not landscape.
Weird.
It's portrait.
Yeah, I don't know why. But it doesn't matter that much.
No.